What's the Appalachian Trail gonna cost you? What's it gonna cost me? What is an Appalachian Trail through hike gonna cost? How do you save up for it? How much do you need to save up for it? How much does the average hiker actually spend on a through hike? These are the types of questions I'm hoping to answer today. I'm going to go through a budget plan that Jeff and I have set up for ourselves on what we expect to spend. Hopefully that can help you on planning your through hike. We are older hikers, so our plan might be a little bit different, but if it's of value to you, awesome. So let's go. The Appalachian Conservancy suggests about $1,200 to $1,400 a month. Other sites have given estimations, such as REI and other backpacker sites have given estimations of about $1,000 a month. Now those are probably prices from last year or a couple of years ago. Certainly the ones from backpackers are from last year. And a lot of them did recommend about $1,000 a month, but inflation has driven up a lot of costs. We're all feeling it now, so I'm going to assume it's probably going to be closer to $1,400 a month, or at least that's what Jeff and I are kind of planning to budget for. So that's our goal plan for this budget. Part of those expectations on what we plan to budget for are going to include things like what your comfort level is, other costs or other factors that are going to affect what type of budget you're going to have, other than sort of your expectations of the hike, or what kind of a person you are. Are you the type of person who likes to socialize and go out drinking every chance they get when they get into town? Are you the type of person who's not going to take many 0 days? So those factors are going to play in as well. Also, how many months you're going to be on trail. I expect to be on trail about 6 months and budget for roughly a 6-month hike. Clearly, Jeff and I are going together and we're part of a couple, so there'll be lots of costs that we can split. A lot of people won't have that option, but you will be meeting people on the trail, so I'm told, and I'm hoping so. So I suspect there'll be chances and opportunities to split some of those costs, not just necessarily lodging, but food costs and shuttle costs, etc., etc. So in total, how much do Jeff and I plan to save? We plan to save about $10,000. That is on the high side. A lot of people last year seem to have spent about $1,000 a month, but again, last year's prices, less that inflation. So I expect that price to be higher this year. But I like to be on the safe side. I'm a little older and I think I would like a few more creature comforts than maybe some of the younger people. And I have the capacity to do that, so I'm going to do that. So how do I plan to break down my budget? I'm going to be breaking it down into 4 categories. The first category is going to be food. So that's going to include my resupply items, my restaurants, any snacks and whatnot from convenience stores. Number 2 is going to be lodging. So that's going to include any camp fees, any permit fees, tent site costs, that type of thing, as well as motels, hotels, and hostels. I'm assuming we're going to run the gamut on that one. It will also include shuttle costs to and from. And number 3 is going to be gear shops. So gear replacement, gear fixing, stuff I buy at gear stores. So those dehydrated meals and little things like that you don't normally find at a Walmart or grocery store. So that'll be included in the gear costs. And finally, 4 is going to be my sort of emergencies and at-home costs. So things that I need to pay for when I get home, my fees that will continue while I'm hiking, so home insurance, car insurance, all that type of thing, and any emergencies and healthcare. I am from Canada, so I will have to be buying my own healthcare. I'm not going to be doing this hike without it. Category 2 are the food costs. Like I said, I'm doing the trail today. It's a little bit icy. But the food costs are going to include, or the food budget line is going to include the cost for restaurants, resupply, snacks and what at convenience stores, which tend to be a little pricier. My research has led me to believe that last year's costs were about $10 a day. I'm aiming probably for closer to $12 to $15 a day, just to build in a little buffer. Resupply tends to be every 3 to 6 days, depending on how often you want to go into town. I suspect we'll go into town a fair bit. I do want to see the sights along the way, but at the same time I do want to keep my money down. Ooh, a bit slippery out here. So, you know, that'll certainly make costs vary quite differently depending on how often you're planning to go into restaurants. So based on that $15 a day for a 6-month hike, I expect to save about $2,700. I'm bumping that up to about $3,000 just to build in extra costs for restaurants and whatnot. You know, you have to estimate you're going to eat about 4,000, 5,000 calories per day, or you should be by the time you really get your hiker legs going, just to ensure that you do have that adequate nutrition. So again, I'm going to be saving about $3,000 for my food budget allocation. Okay, I'm just going to take a little seat here and save myself from falling on my tush with the ice. I just wanted to talk about budgeting for lodging. So that's going to be our tent costs, or campsite costs, state park costs, hostels and hotels, as well as shuttles. Tent costing, I'm not expecting that to be too high. Even permits, there's not that many permits on the Appalachian Trail. I know the Smoky Mountain permit has gone up this year, it's $40. So that's a little bit of a price increase, as I suspect many prices are going to be increased. Hostels, my research led me to believe last year, cost about $30 to $50, depending on if you're getting a bunk or you're doing the whole suite room, private room, I guess. It's been a long time since I've done hostels. That was about, I guess, 30 years ago, so quite some time ago. And they're a great place. They're great for socializing and meeting people and being fairly inexpensive. They also have a range of options, some hostels anyway, where you can do your laundry and shower and maybe tent on their property, so that can cut costs down. Chances are likely Jeff and I will be using hotels and motels more often, just because we'll be able to split the cost, so that will definitely keep our costs down. So the total amount that we're planning to budget for this category is about $3,000. That also includes the shuttle, which will mostly just be held in cash. They do, at least the research that I've gotten from other hikers and whatnot, they do like cash. It's much easier to deal with. I suspect those costs will also go up this year just because gas prices went up more so than last year. So just from to and from like hostels and whatnot, some of them are free. Also, there's plenty of hitchhiking that you can do. Will do some. I'm familiar with hitchhiking from way back in the 90s. But even back then, it's always nice if you can to offer a few bucks for gas, especially if it's a pretty far distance. They may reject it, but it's always a nice gesture if you have it. So it's always nice to have cash on you for that. So in total, again, I mentioned I'll be saving about $3,000 for the lodging portion of the budget. Beautiful sight here. The sun has come on out on our nice icy hike today. So the third category I want to discuss with you is going to be about gear, the gear shops. So mostly it's going to be just gear that needs replacement, gear that needs fixing, or stuff I can get at a gear store. The stuff I'm expecting to actually spend the most money on is probably shoes. We're going to be going through at least 4 pairs, I suspect, maybe more, depending on how long they last. I haven't completely dialed in what shoe I'm going to be wearing. I'm working with a physiotherapist right now to determine that, but we'll have that certainly dialed in. But I expect that's going to cost a decent pair of shoes, tends to run about $130 to $150 times 4, so you're looking at $600-700 in shoe replacements. I'm not expecting any like backpacking problems or sleeping bag problems, but if you did need to replace those, that's definitely going to cost you some money. So if you can go in with gear in fairly good repair, it's a good idea. You save yourself some coin. But at gear stores, I also plan to get the items that I can't get at a convenience store, particularly like the full meals, packaged meals that you buy. They don't tend to be found so easily at a Walmart, but they're much more handy at a gear store, but they're expensive. They're like $10 or so a meal, but they are tasty and they are nice and light. So I definitely see the appeal, but we'll see how much I spend there. I have the intention on saving about $1,500 for the gear stores. So hopefully I can stay within that range, but that is the plan so far. So I want to talk to you about category 4. This is the emergencies and home costs category. So this is going to include, for Jeff and I particularly, because we're Canadian, obviously we're going to have to pay for private health care insurance. So that's new to me. Include that in our budget, as well as our at-home costs that are just going to keep going regardless whether we're on the trail. We do own a home. We don't have a mortgage on it, thankfully, but things like maintenance and insurance, all of those things are going to continue. Same with a car. Those will continue on as well. That we'll have to make sure any other debts and ongoing subscriptions like cell phones, etc., those will all have to be budgeted in there as well. So again, that's going to vary quite wildly to everyone. So it's kind of hard to take from other people what they've budgeted, because everyone's going to be quite a bit different there. So on average, our total budget that we're planning to save for this is probably about $3,000 as well. One of the things that also to be included in this cost is the buffer you have when you get home. So are you going to be working right away? Are you going to be healing? Are you going to be taking a vacation, a little time off? What's your plan? For Jeff and I plan to take a little time off before we go back to work. We're both nurses, so getting a job isn't going to be difficult for us, but healing from a hike like this is definitely going to be challenging. So for that category, again, it's going to be about $3,000 saved for that. So, I mean, I think our budget is probably higher than most people's budgets. I just wanted to go over a few tips here on ways you can save some money. You can save a lot of money with gear by buying used, secondhand. Another way to save some money is by not taking as many 0 days. So spending the time on the trail, which is why you're out there. But before you go into town, it's best to maybe camp just before, so you go in the morning. That way you have a nice breakfast. Try not to go into town when you're ravenously hungry, because just like when you go into a grocery store when you're hungry, your eyes are always going to be bigger. You're probably going to spend way more money than you anticipated. So if you go into town with a full belly, you'll probably spend a little less money. No guarantees, but that's the theory of it. Or just stay at the hostels, like perhaps just tent on the property as opposed to getting a room. That's one way to save money. Certainly split costs if you are going to stay in a hotel. Maybe get a few people to bunk up with you if that's something that's possible. Same with grocery stores. You can buy larger bulk items and cut them in half if you have several people willing to pitch in for them. And a little more variety, which is nice. One tip I've heard, certainly from other hikers, is to not really send yourself supply boxes, because you end up probably not wanting the things in the supply box. Then you've got this packaging to take care of. So it's best if you don't have to do supply boxes, unless of course you have a special diet and that's necessary. Then, you know, maybe that actually works out to be cheaper for you. Certainly another piece of advice that I've been given is to repair your items quickly. Don't let them, a small fixable thing, turn into a big unfixable thing. So if you can sew something up quickly or patch it quickly before it rips too large. So in total, I expect our budget to probably be on the higher end of what most people would spend. I'm hoping to spend a lot less, but I'd rather have more saved and not use it than not to have enough saved. So I'm expecting to save about $10,000 to $12,000 for the trip, and that's going to include all of those costs. Like I said, I hope to spend less, but I'd like to know that it's available to me if necessary. but hopefully we'll keep those costs down and follow along, and at the end of it I'll do a post cost review, and we'll see what I actually spent.